Ursula von der Leyen, Relações UE-China num ponto de inflexão.
I want to raise a question to President von der Leyen. You said in your meeting with President Xi that EU-China ties are at inflection point, and you raised concerns from the EU side. But my question is, what is that the EU is willing to do to really maintain this relationship stable and sustainable? Thank you.
Yeah, indeed. I used the term that we are at an inflection point. It is an important relationship that we have. But to be successful, we need to see more progress on the issues that are challenging for us. So important is to listen to each other and to find pragmatic solutions. And you might know that we have several high-level dialogues. We have the very successful high-level dialogue on climate and environment. It took place, I think, a week or 10 days ago with the good result of the joint statement. We have a very important high-level dialogue on the economy and trade. The issues I was mentioning in my statement are very dominant there. Important on human rights. And we launched today, as I said, the new export supply mechanism that looks at export controls and makes sure that there are no bottlenecks, no slowing down the process of delivering critical raw materials that are under the export controls to the companies that need it. So very pragmatic, but it's important to listen to each other because then you can often dissolve prejudices. You can find where the issue is really painful and where you have to find a solution, and then you have a pragmatic approach to the whole topic.
One question from the paper. And we all know that there are many differences between China and the EU. We have different social systems, different culture and history, and also we have some different views on some bilateral and international issues. So my question is, as we mark our 50th anniversary, how can we keep this divergence from our cooperation and communication in the future? Thank you.
Well, by dialogue. First of all, we respect, of course, the difference of the systems, but by dialogue is the only way to ensure mutual understanding, to identify problems, and to address these problems to find solutions, and also to work together in spite of this difference in the matters that we need to work together because they are global challenges and the world needs a close cooperation between the European Union and China. And that's the reason because we are here. We have been here doing this along of this day, working with President Xi, working with Prime Minister Li, and now I think we have a clear work to develop together.
Yeah, indeed. This is a relationship that is as important as it is complex, without any question, and therefore openness, frankness, mutual understanding, so listening to each other must be the foundation of our discourse, our dialogue. And I think the summit delivered exactly on that one. We have very frankly and openly raised our concerns, very clearly, very direct. You know, the trade and investment and geopolitical issues that we mentioned. We have partially identified solutions. I mentioned the mechanism, if there are bottlenecks in the export controls, that we have a swift solution for that one, for example. And of course, we also recognize that we have shared challenges or concerns where together we can make a big difference. And this is, for example, the fight against climate change, or protecting the environment, but also humanitarian needs, development aid, and topics like this. So it was full of different topics, was a day, but very constructive and very pragmatic.
Thank you.
I would like to know on Ukraine, the topic of Ukraine. So, I mean, we come from some tough weeks in this respect. With reports published on Wang Yi expressing in his visit to the EU this idea of China not interested in the end of the war. and of course the recent sanctions package. And you've expressed that you told the Chinese side your concerns. I would like to know, did you receive any new commitments from the Chinese side, or did they reckon anything new? Did they understand your points? Thank you.
But first of all, we share with China two important points. First of all, the European Union and China, we uphold the United Nations Charter, and namely the values of sovereignty, territorial integrity, and respect of the international recognized borders. And several times China expressed the same position about this war in the United Nations, and recently voted the resolution presented by several member states of the European Union in the General Assembly. Second, we expressed the same wish to reach a just and lasting peace as soon as possible. And we had the opportunity to express, first, our conviction that China, as a permanent member of the Security Council, has a special responsibility to influence Russia to stop this war, to accept an unconditional ceasefire, and to go to a fair negotiation with Ukraine. And of course, we also stress that in war times, dual-use goods often are used as enablers of the war. And for this reason, we ask Russia to pay attention of their exports to Russia to avoid the use of dual goods for war purposes.
Yeah, indeed. We have been very clear on that topic. China has an influence on Russia, like the European Union has an influence on Ukraine, and that it is our expectation that China uses this influence to make sure that Russia is coming seriously to the negotiation table. Like we in the European Union don't even have to use our influence because President Zelensky has already offered and is at the negotiation tables and offered to sit down and negotiate seriously with Russia. In those negotiations then, I fully acknowledge that two sovereign countries decide on what they want to discuss and how they want to discuss and what the outcome in the very end is. But important is that we have a ceasefire and that the negotiations at the table take place. There is a true and genuine willingness to find a solution and to end the bloodshed.
My question from AFP is European leadership talks about balancing its trade relationship with China, but there have been no signs of a shrinking deficit with European markets heavily dependent on imports from China.
I haven't understood. Sorry, but
Can you repeat the question, please?
Sure. My question is that European leadership talks about balancing its trade relationship with China, but there have been no signs of a shrinking deficit, with European markets still heavily dependent on China for materials in technology and energy and other manufacturing components, while also lobbying for these loosened export restrictions on rare earths. So what are some practical steps that the EU plans to take to address the $360 billion trade deficit with China, and can you provide any glimpse into the time frame of that? Thank you.
So we had today a very interesting business community meeting, Chinese businesses and European businesses, and there was also very clear that it is three main issues that are restricting the potential that could be possible in trade between the European Union and China, and this is the lack of market access, the tariff barriers partially, but also the non-tariff barriers. For example, the Buy China principle is often used by local authorities not to allow European companies to compete on a fair level playing field, so market access. is one big topic. The second topic is indeed the export controls, or let's say the reliability of supply chains. And here the reliability of supply chains is very much focused on the topic of critical raw materials, permanent magnets, rare earths, for example. Here I think the summit showed that we can find practical solution, that there will be more transparency about the speed of allowing the export license to function, more speed in delivering on these critical raw materials to the companies. And if there is a delay, a critical delay, we have now established a mechanism where the companies can immediately ask us to mediate and to find out why there's a delay on the delivery of the critical raw materials to the companies. So a very pragmatic step forward in one of the major topics the companies in the European Union are complaining about. And as I said, if it comes to the Chinese market, it's mostly the access to the market that is demanded.
That's it for tonight. Thank you for attending this press conference.
Thank you.